Hello and welcome to the news desk. This week we're already on season 4, episode 41, and we're recording on Halloween. It's the day the tickets went on sale for the UEFA-CONMEBOL Women's Finalissima, which is a brand new tournament. And my co-host today is Mr. Nancy Gillen, who has got tickets, I hear, Mr. Gillen.
Yeah, I do. I queued for a couple of hours and then was insulted
by the FA.
By the FA, called me Mr. Nancy Gillen. I genuinely have no idea where that's come from. I must have accidentally put the wrong title when I was signing up. But yeah, I'm just glad to get tickets because getting England tickets for a Wembley match is quite a hard task these days. It's they're very sought after, and I think a match against Brazil is always a fun match to go to. So yeah, glad I got tickets despite the Mr. Nancy Gillen error.
Well, I hope it doesn't mean that you will be turned away at the gate. You'll probably have to take ID, your driver's license or something to prove you are the one and only.
Yeah, well, I think luckily your name doesn't flash up on the entrance thing, but yeah, I might just take some ID just in case.
Just in case, yes. Well, at least you got tickets, and that match, as you said, that game is against Brazil on April the 6th of next year at Wembley. Now, this is a brand new competition, isn't it, Nancy? Tell us about it.
Yep. So it's introduced by FIFA. I think it's already exists in men's football, and they've kind of taken idea. But it's the European champions, which are England after they won the Euro 2022, and then the South American champions, who are Brazil. So it's kind of pitting the two continental champions against each other. So yeah, I think it's a nice idea, and sometimes I think in football you play teams in your continent quite a lot because of qualifying for the World Cup and your own continental tournament. So it's always good to play teams from outside. So yeah, it's the first time the women's Finalissima has ever been held, and yeah, a really great stage. Wembley is such a great pitch to hold it at because the scene of England winning the Euros and can fit 90,000 people. It should be a really great occasion. So yeah, that's in April. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and it's nice that they're going back to Wembley too. And I mean, there are plenty of places that they could play around the UK, but they've chosen Wembley. Wembley are, really welcoming the Lionesses these days after their Euro win, of course. But you would have imagined that there would be one venue that would be difficult to get into, but not for them now, I think, given their status.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a real emphasis on making Wembley the home of, it is the home of England football, and it's definitely the home of the men's team, and they always play there. But I think there's a real emphasis now on making sure that it's also the home of the women's team as well. Which is really important because, it should be the home of both national teams. So I think winning the Euros there was a nice coincidence because it was, fortunate that we were hosting the tournament at the time. But yeah, to then have the friendly against the United States and then organise this match against Brazil as well, I think really solidifies that as Wembley being the place to be for England women.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll look forward to that next April, as you said. Meanwhile, over here, of course, this past weekend, we had the NWSL Championship Final, which took place at the Audi Field in Washington, D.C. Portland Thorns beat Kansas City Current 2-0, thanks to Sophia Smith's 4-minute first goal, and then an own goal, sadly, by Addisyn Merrick at the other end after 56 minutes. She was the goalie, just let that dribble in behind her. But I think, Nancy, I don't know if you just managed to see the highlights of this. It was very much Portland's game right from the start. The Kansas City just couldn't get anywhere against their defense. And, it was, I think, there might have been 3 goals or 4, it was that kind of game.
Yeah, it was. Wasn't able to watch it live, but I caught the highlights after, and yeah, I think Sophia Smith's goal was really, really well taken, but did come from a defensive error, and then the second goal error from the keeper as well. So I'm sure Kansas might be a bit frustrated about that, but I think it seems like it's well deserved for the Portland Thorns. And what a talent Sophia Smith is as well. Only 22 years old and named the MVP of the NWSL. I think she's the youngest ever to be named that, so she's definitely one to keep an eye on. Talking about international football and the World Cup, I think she could be a real star for the US next year.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. It's very, very exciting. And I think there was a good crowd there too, talking about the crowds, Nancy, over 70,000. I think it was 74,000 that showed up. So that was a good crowd for a big stadium. The Audi Field is a big American football stadium. So, unfortunately, I think I've mentioned this before, the bleachers are way too high and steep for me to go up. But it was a good crowd for them and a tremendous celebration for Portland Thorns. So, all credit to Rhian Wilkinson there, and who is their coach, a Canadian former international player herself. And she said afterwards, Nancy, that she sees so much talent in Sophia Smith that she could be probably the best player in the world ultimately, and she feels somewhat responsible for shaping her career. So, as you say, exciting things to come from her. And meanwhile, our roster has been announced for the 2 friendlies against Germany. That's coming up this month. We're going to have two. You knew about these 2, didn't you? Because you have an international window coming up as well.
Yeah, so we're playing. We've got Japan and Norway coming up in November. So same international window.
Yeah, and I see Emily Fox is back on that roster, which is great. Our defender, she got injured in the last international. Actually, it was against England, wasn't it? She got injured at Wembley. She came off early. Do you remember our defender?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, she's back in the tack and joining that roster for the 2 Germany games. Now you've got obviously a roundup from the WSL this past weekend. Did you have? I know you had an international for Champions League against Zurich last week that you went to, and then you've got the roundup of the weekend. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, we can start with Champions League. So. Like you said, it was a match against Arsenal Zurich at the Emirates Stadium. So Arsenal won that 3-1. It wasn't the biggest crowd at the Emirates. I think it was around 5,000, which when you consider being in a 60,000 capacity stadium, that's a pretty small crowd. But it is more than it can fit into Meadow Park. So I suppose at least there's an opportunity for more players to watch the match. But yeah, really good start to the Champions League for Arsenal, with having beaten Lyon the week before, so that's 2 wins now. And then Chelsea as well. They did pretty well against their opposition. But to be fair, it was no disrespect to them, but it was a team from Albania, so they really thrashed them quite significantly. I think it was something like 8-0 or something like that. And I know it was 8-0. Sam Kerr scored a first half hat trick, so just shows you what kind of form she was in. And then we had a whole round of WSL fixtures yesterday. Actually, it was all of the matches fell on a Sunday. More wins for Chelsea and Arsenal, more wins for Manchester United. So those 3 teams are top of the table with 15 points, although it must be remembered that Chelsea have a game in hand. So if they were to lose that, then they are slightly behind Arsenal and Man U. Man City have continued to turn their season around after a poor start by beating Liverpool 2-1. There were a couple of really dramatic games, one of which was Tottenham absolutely thrashing Brighton 8-0, which I was really surprised about because Tottenham hadn't really started this season that well. They were okay, but hadn't really impressed too much. And 8-0 was a massive scoreline. And only relatively recently, in the past couple of hours, the Brighton manager, Hope Powell, has left the club after that defeat. So It sounds like it was a bit of a...
She only won one game so far.
Yeah, they definitely have been struggling, and she has been at the club for 5 years and has taken them quite a way. But it did seem the season that they were going backwards slightly, and they'd lost quite a few key players over the summer who they hadn't replaced. But yeah, I think it sounded like it was a mutual decision in that she was frustrated at the fact that they hadn't replaced those signings over summer, and I think felt it was time to move on. And then probably that 8-0 loss just solidified that for the club. And yeah, so they've parted ways. So that's Brighton now without a manager. And then also down at the bottom of the table, there was quite a dramatic match between Reading and Leicester, with Leicester winning 1-0 up until the 90th minute. And then Rachel Rowe of Reading scoring 2 goals, one in the 90th and one in the 90-plus second, to completely change that game on its head. And that was Reading's first win of the season, and that leaves Leicester on no points at all. So that was almost kind of a early relegation battle, which was very dramatic. So yeah, there was a lot of goals going on, a lot of drama and entertainment as always.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Can I just rewind? I forgot to mention where those games were against Germany. If you're in anywhere near Fort Lauderdale, you're going to have one at the PNK Stadium there on November 10th, and then they go north to Harrison, New Jersey to the Red Bull Arena on November 13th. So sorry about that. And I did also forget to give a shout out to Alex Morgan and Mal Pugh, who are also coming back onto the team. You remember Alex Pugh. Alex was off with injury, but she's going to come back for those internationals against Germany. So sorry, I just missed that thread. All right, we're going to move on to Man City. And they made the news for something completely different, didn't they, this week?
Yeah, so a bit of positive news from City. They've decided to stop wearing white shorts this season because of concerns from players about playing when they're on their periods. So it was decided between City and their kit manufacturer Puma that they would find an alternative colour scheme starting from next season. But they've also decided that this season they're going to wear the burgundy shorts that they normally wear with their away kit. And it does actually work quite well because the home kit anyway has a kind of burgundy trim on its collar and sleeve, so it doesn't look ridiculous that they're wearing these burgundy shorts as well. So yeah, they're not the first football club to do so. So West Brom and Stoke have at the start of the season also announced that they wouldn't be wearing white shorts anymore, but Man City are probably the most high profile and only Women's Super League club at the moment to change their kit colour. So I'm kind of expecting probably a few clubs. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking who has white shorts. Probably, Arsenal does, Everton. Quite a few clubs play with white shorts, so I can see that being a change that's made in the future for other teams as well. And yeah, it's good as well when you read more into this story that the decision it came after player consultation and feedback from the team. So the fact that the club is actually listening to the women. And I mean, we've spoken about it on the podcast before, I think especially around Wimbledon and wearing all white during Wimbledon, which of course is tradition. But if you are on your period, that's something probably in the back of your mind that you're worried about when you just 100% want to focus on your performance. So I think anything anyone can do to make women feel more comfortable playing sport, and something just as simple as, changing the colour of the kit, it's very insignificant, really, isn't it? It doesn't matter what colour your kit is in terms of, you can just make it not white. But the fact is wearing white shorts can be detrimental to women if they're on their periods. So, yeah, it's such an easy change. And it's great to see big clubs like Man City doing that. And, yeah, I hope to see future teams do it. And I think around England as well. I mean, that all-white kit that the team wore to win the Euros is now pretty iconic, but it's not the most practical of kits. So maybe we'll see a change to that before the World Cup as well.
Yeah, good point. All right. Well, that's, I think, all of football news for this week, isn't it, Nancy?
It is, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. All right, we're going to move on to boxing. We had a boxing story last week with Carissa Shields. We've got another one this week. Katie Taylor, the Irish fighter, beat Karen Elizabeth Carabajal to remain undisputed lightweight champion of the world. Nancy, did that appear on TV over there?
It wasn't on TV, but it was on DAZN boxing, so the streaming service. I think it was on YouTube, and yeah, I think that's how you access it. So yeah, you have to pay for that normally, so I wasn't able to watch it, but I watched the clips, and it was actually in London as well. It took place at Wembley Arena. So yeah, I don't think the result was too much of a surprise, given Carabajal is a bit of an unknown and Katie Taylor is the best in the world. But yeah, she after her win, she called on Amanda Serrano, who she beat at Madison Square Gardens earlier in this year, to fight at Croke Park in Dublin with 80,000 people, which Taylor said would be the biggest event in women's boxing history. So hopefully they can make that fight happen, because that would be massive. And yeah, I think Katie Taylor at the moment is just pretty unstoppable. So it'd be a really good match.
So yeah, I mean, she's unbeaten in 22 professional fights, which is extraordinary. And she won, to those who follow her in boxing and the Olympics, of course, will remember that she won gold in 2012. So an amazing record, to get to that point. She's 36 years of age as well. You wonder how much more boxing she's got left in her. I mean, obviously she's at a peak of her career right now, I'd imagine. And, I don't know when a boxer has to retire, but it seems to me 36 is a pretty good age to still be that successful. Yeah, definitely.
I do think there's a bit of a, maybe not an issue as such, but I think maybe there's not too much depth. There's not enough depth in her division. So it's, the fact that she's going back to fight Amanda Serrano maybe just shows that she is so good and she's still in really good form, but there's maybe not the boxers there to challenge her or to kind of, persuade her to step aside and stop boxing. So yeah, it'd be good to see a couple of young boxers, I think, coming through and maybe challenging her for that lightweight title, because at the moment it's hard to know anyone that could knock her off her pedestal.
Yeah, for sure. All right, tennis, I think, is our last piece of sports news this week. We've got to cut another item to follow that, but we're going to move on to the WTA Finals, which are taking place in Fort Worth in Texas, starting today, actually. So those first games are actually on this evening, and they're going to be the American Pegula versus Sakura, and that's going to be followed by Ons Jabeur and Sabalenka. So I can't think of Ons or Sabalenka without thinking about the Halloween scares that they were doing during their interviews, pre-tournament interviews. Nancy, did you see that with Ons scaring everybody who sat down with her?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think she enjoyed doing that a lot.
It looked like she did. So anyway, they're gonna kick off today. This tournament runs right through till next Monday. Actually, the finals are on Monday, the 7th of November. So what's the thoughts there, Nancy? I mean, there's a top 8 players in the world, right?
Yep. So, yeah, Iga Swiatek, you've got Coco Gauff, Caroline Garcia, I think Daria Kasatkina. I think we've mentioned them all now. But, yeah, it's hard to look past Iga Swiatek, isn't it? Just because, well, number one, and even when she's not playing well, she still seems to win. But, yeah, I always think the WTA Finals is a bit of a weird one, because it is the best 8 players in the world, but it kind of comes at the end of the season, and I think everyone's a little bit tired and maybe form goes out the window a little bit. I think when you look back at previous winners, it maybe isn't necessarily the best player of the year. And also, I guess it's kind of, some players have really come into form towards the end of the year and kind of clinched that spot last minute, so maybe are in better form than others. I'm excited to see Coco Gauff, I think, the most. I think she's had a really exciting season and she's still so young. I think Jessica Pegula's been in really good form as well. So I think the two Americans could do pretty well. And then, I think Swiatek as well. I think Sabalenka, to be honest, I know I was watching her interview when they did the press event, and she seemed quite surprised herself, to be honest, that she was there. Because I don't think the season's really lived up to her expectations. And I think she had like the season leading amount of double faults as well. Quite a significant amount more than anyone else. So I think she's definitely struggled a bit this year. So I think she seems surprised to be there. So I'm not really expecting too much from her. But yeah, it's always a bit of a interesting one. It's kind of a bit of fun. I know there's quite a lot at stake and a lot of prize money at stake, but I think the players definitely prioritise stuff like Grand Slams and would rather win a Grand Slam over the WTA Finals. So I always think maybe it's a bit more relaxed and fun than some of the other tournaments.
Yeah, maybe not the same kind of pressure. And they also have the doubles as well, don't they?
Yes.
Doubles tournament there too.
So Pegula and Goff are competing as a doubles pair in that too, which I think is incredible, to be honest. They're competing in both tournaments.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's fantastic. Well, that's the advantage of youth, isn't it? You can play in both tournaments.
Yeah. I mean, I think Goff's number one in the doubles or very near the top. So, to be reaching Grand Slam finals in the singles and be hitting the top of the world rankings in doubles is, pretty unbelievable, really.
Yeah. Well, that'll be fun to watch, and we'll have obviously the results of that for you on the show next week. And before we go, we're going to talk about female athletes as we always do, and but this topic is about who's the highest paid female athlete. And Nancy, no surprising there. 2 or 3 of them are not surprising, but there's I don't know. What's your thoughts on there? So we've got Naomi Osaka, who her top earning is $53.2 million. Then Serena Williams, Emma Raducanu, Eileen Gu, the freestyle skier, and then Simone Biles, $9 million compared to Naomi Osaka on 53. Any surprises as far as you're concerned on that list?
I think not too many surprises. I think Eileen Gu's an interesting one, but I also know how big she is in China. And the fact that the Winter Olympics was this year. I think it's really interesting looking at on Sportsco's website where they've got the list, looking at the comparison between the salary / winnings and endorsements, because such a vast amount of the money they're earning is for endorsements. So, for instance, of Naomi Osaka's $53.2 million, $52 million is endorsements and $1.2 million is salary. And Simone Biles with her $9 million, only $38,000, which is a lot. I would take that. But in comparison to $9 million, only $38,000 came through salary / winning. So, I think it just kind of shows the importance of brands, I guess, being involved in women's sport and how much they influence, I guess, the salaries of female athletes.
Interesting, Emma Raducanu, for example, who has not had a great year. As we know, she's been plagued by injuries again since she once won the US Open in 2021. She's still been piling on the endorsements. So, she's still carrying that star power through with her despite not winning tournaments this year.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think that top 5, bar Eileen Gu, who won Olympic golds in Beijing, none of them have really won anything. Osaka's had a pretty bad season. Serena's obviously retired, but wasn't doing much. Raducanu, again, really struggled since the US Open, and Simone Biles got a bronze at the Olympics, but hasn't really been competing apart from that. So again, that is also interesting. It kind of I suppose it's all from rather this year, kind of the years before that, and the athletes doing well and then getting up endorsements and maintaining them. But it's also interesting that it's not necessarily the people that are performing well at the moment that are getting in the money.
No, and Eileen, going back to Eileen, of course, that's all endorsements for her. There's no salary winning in freestyle skiing.
Yeah.
And there's 3 golfers on there: tennis players and golfers, gymnasts, freestyle skiing, as I mentioned. But Ash Barty is still on there, and that's mostly salary winnings for her, and not endorsements. It's gone the other way around, which is very interesting because now she's retired from being a pro tennis player.
Yeah, and it must obviously from those probably the wins, the Australian Open win and stuff at the start of the season. But yeah, and as well, Ashley Barty never seemed to be an athlete that was fussed about endorsements at all. So I guess that kind of, she could probably be right at the top, even though she has retired. She could probably be right at the top of the rankings if she wanted to. But yeah, she always struck me as someone that wasn't really fussed about that kind of side of sport at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's a good thing. I mean, it's interesting that Naomi Osaka, who again hasn't won that much, again this year. I mean, she's been back after taking some time off, but she's head and shoulders above everybody else. In terms of her endorsements, 52 against, and we'll compare her with Emma, because Emma's in third in those rankings with 23. You can't quite compare her with Serena because Serena, as you said, is retired. But that Naomi is so far ahead of everybody else is really says a lot, given that she had that time off, and I don't know, just it's that much more. I mean, 35 to 50 million, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot. And yeah, I think it a lot of it is, I guess, kind of when you've had the success, what you do with it and what you decide, if you decide to kind of go into business. And I know Osaka's involved in some business initiatives herself. So yeah, I guess it's kind of what you do once you ever have achieved sporting success. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting list. Always kind of look forward to seeing these kind of things when it comes to the end of the year, because it's very intriguing.
It is. And, and to see what that looks like in years to come as well. If Emma will be up there in the top 3 this time next year, hopefully she'll have a better season. Is she playing right now anywhere, Nancy? Because she had another injury. She just keeps getting those injuries. She's a bit like the Jordan Nobbs of tennis, isn't she?
Yeah, I mean, she is still injured. So she was meant to be playing in the WTA Finals, which start next week. So representing Britain at that tournament, but she's had to withdraw from that with injury. I don't know how much is actual injury and how much is...
Which finals? You said WTA. Which finals?
Oh, sorry, not WTA. Billie Jean King Cup.
Oh, yeah, the WTA, yeah. Right.
Yeah. So she's withdrawn from that. But yeah, I don't know how much is injury and how much is, her team saying, right, we need this period to fully focus on your fitness, because there's been a lot. She's been putting a lot of videos of herself in the gym, doing like strength and conditioning and stuff. So it suggests she's definitely, working on that. So I don't know, maybe if her team had just decided it's not that essential that she competes at the Billie Jean King Cup finals. So maybe she's skipping it because of that. But either way, it's because her fitness isn't quite there. So yeah, hopefully it means that she'll go into next season and kind of finally be able to put her fitness issues behind her.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep you posted as we learn about this and all the other players, especially after the end of the season, and who's looking forward to the Australian Open, which is right around the corner. In the meantime, in the world of skiing, I'm afraid we don't have anything to report because there's not been enough snow for the first 2 rounds of the World Cup. And so it's going to be another couple of weeks before we go to Finland. So stay tuned. We'll have more as we know it. And hopefully there will be snow in Finland. They're going far enough north to ski. You'd think there'd be snow in November, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd hope so. But it is freakishly warm at the moment. Maybe the clock's changing will help it get a bit, I don't know if it works like that, but maybe that will help. I don't know.
Now, one day I'm going to go far enough north to see the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights. Have you ever seen them?
I haven't, no. I have been in Iceland over Christmas, but there was too much light pollution where I was. So unfortunately, I didn't see them.
Well, I'll let you know if I can when I check that off my bucket list, but it is a plan. And apparently I can see them in Alaska. There's certain parts of the States you can see them in Canada. And so I either go to Alaska, which is the one state left that I haven't been to over here, of all the US states. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I'd love to see the Aurora Borealis. One of those wonders of the world. Okay, Nancy, I think that's about a wrap. We better get out of here before they turn the lights off.
Yeah, another really just so much news in women's sport as always.
As always, what are you working on this week?
I think covering the WTA Finals for sure. Although the time difference is going to make that a bit tricky. Got more Champions League football midweek, and then WSL at the weekend as well. Rugby World Cup is kind of getting into the crunch time at the moment. So yeah, a wide variety of sports going on at the moment.
I just wanted to ask you about Alexia Putellas because I thought I saw her look like she was dressed to play, but she wasn't on any crutches or looking particularly lame. How is that Spanish player that we, of course, lost to the finals just before the finals of the Euros, and our Ballon d'Or champion again this year? What's the news on her injury?
I haven't had much of an update, but yeah, because it's an ACL. I mean, I think her predicted comeback will be around March, April. So she's still got quite a way to go with that. But yeah, it's good to see her without crutches. I imagine she's working hard in the gym, doing rehab. But yes, unfortunately, still a few months to go. Yeah. But I mean, she should be fit for the World Cup. But actually, well, because of the Spanish dispute, she might not even be playing at the World Cup. But yeah, no, she should be back around May time.
Yeah, and hopefully those others there's so many that are out with ACL. Kat Macario being another US player, and also Kristen Press. There's a list of them out with ACL injuries right now. But hopefully all of them will be back in time for the World Cup season. But you have to wonder if Andonovski will be looking at Chris Press when she does come back, given the dynamics there.
Yeah, it seems like she's never really mentioned, is she? So that's a bit of a shame that it might not be an injury thing, and for whatever reason he might have decided that she's not in her plans. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see when she comes back from injury. Yeah.
We didn't mention Casey Stone, the San Diego coach. She won the NWSL Coach of the Year.
Yeah, that's amazing to see. I really rate her as a coach. So I'm happy to see that she's thriving in the US, and it would be nice to see her come back to England. I do think she is a potential England manager in the future, but that's probably some way down the line. But yeah, at the moment, it's great to see her doing well in the US.
You don't need her yet. Calm down. You do not.
Well, exactly. But I think it's nice to have talent like that you could.
Yeah, for sure.
If Serena decides to leave, you've got people like that who could definitely come in and do a really good job.
Yeah, no, for sure. But right for the time being, you're doing well enough. You're in good shape. So, and also shout out to the NWSL Rookie of the Year, Naomi Girma, who's the defender. She has had a fantastic year, and I'm super impressed with her in defence. Nancy, I don't know if you've paid much attention to her. She was on the team against that friendly at Wembley with the Lionesses. Anyway, she's had a great season, so shout out to her as well for being the Rookie of the Year. And you mentioned earlier the most valued player, as far as we're concerned over here, is Sophia Smith for Portland Thorns. So yeah, congratulations to all of them. We're wrapping up on that's the end of our season over here. We'll see what the internationals bring, and also our players that are going on loan and playing in Europe. We'll keep an eye on them for you. But for now, I think that's it. Nancy, tell everybody how they can read your writings.
Yep. So I write for Give Me Sport Women. So you can visit our website, or we're on Twitter at Give Me Sport W. And my own social media handles are Nancy _Gillen on Twitter, and then on Instagram it's Nancy Gillen _sport.
Okay, fantastic. And we're at wisports.com as always, and at wisports on social media. So until next week, that's it from me, Chris Stafford, alongside Nancy Gillen, bringing you a roundup of what's happening in the world of women's sports. We will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening.